How are we going, everybody? Back at the apple tree. We've been talking about codling moth and controlling it, the 3 cycles in its lifespan. You've got the grubs coming out of the ground, crawling up the trunk. We've got a tree band on. We've also got the trap there to lure the female from going to the tree and getting it caught in there. We're also going to be spraying it later on, a little bit later on, because the fruit is only just set with our CGWS, because we found it to be very, very effective in controlling and deterring the codling moth from laying its eggs on the fruit. But what we're going to do now is actually cover it over. So I've been monitoring the tree, and about 95, if not more, % of all the flowers have set fruit. And you'll be able to see the little fruit growing. Not all of them are at the same stage in growth, but there's a lot on this tree that the flowers have really set well. And you can see here, look at that. See, that's the flower underneath there. Sorry, that's the fruit. That's the flower. So the petals have fallen off, and we wait for the fruit to grow because that's the blossom end of the fruit. And the other side is where the stem is and connects to the tree. Now, this is the size you've got to have all your fruit approximately up to before you spray it. Maybe a little bit smaller than that, but you don't want to be spraying it when it's like this. See the flower? That's about to burst out. Now, because I have literally 1,000 fruit, if not 2,000 fruit on this tree, I can't afford to sacrifice the last few flowers on this tree from blossoming and setting fruit. I'm not so concerned about trying to get every single one. In actual fact, I may need to thin this out because you don't need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 apples in one little cluster. Ain't gonna happen. That's the results of too much black grit. Anyway, what we're going to do now is cover it over. In about a week's time or 2 weeks, we're going to come back and spray it. What we're going to cover it with now is our wildlife-friendly bird netting. Now, folks, this has gone out like hotcakes. Everybody has been jumping on the bandwagon to get this, which is great because it's designed to protect the wildlife whilst protecting your fruit trees from pests getting into them. It's the difference between this one and your typical bird netting, and this is mainly for Victoria because we've got the new regulations here that doesn't allow us to use the old traditional up to 15mm opening aperture, that is, in netting on our trees anymore. So they've become illegal, and what you have to do is use the wildlife friendly one, and we haven't got a lot left on the shelf, folks. Literally, we'd be probably down to our last 15% of our stock, and it's weeks away, if not months away, before the next batch does turn up. So get it in now, otherwise forever hold your peace. This is the white one, obviously, and it's only got a 4.5mm opening on it. When you stretch it out, you can see the aperture there. It's a third of the normal size, so birds can't get tangled up, but at the same time, you don't want to drape it over loosely. So I've done this old poly pipe with the concrete rods, which I've got a crisscross going over and tied up in the middle there with a little bit, well, in this case here, masking tape. It'll suffice for now. It's only the one season, we want to take it down. You can use duct tape or insulation tape, whatever. And we're going to throw the 10 by 10 metre netting over the top of this. So the best way to do this is with 2 people. Hello? Put it down. This is a 10 by 10 metre bird netting, so we've got plenty here to play with. They do come in a 5 by 5 or by the metre as well, depending on how big your trees are. I'm actually thinking the 5 by 5, no, see 5 by 5, a little bit too small for this. I've got the 10 by 10, which is I think a little bit too long. Have a look at this. I might have to put a frame over this one as well. Well, is this 10 by 10? This is like 20 metres. This is huge. I haven't got the heart to cut it. I might just cover this whole area. We should throw a tape measure in this little courtyard and see. Oh, here we go. My mind's running wild again. While I'm down here, folks, anyway, this is a 10 by 10. I'm going to curl it up at the bottom. I'll just quickly show you the difference between the old netting. This is what we used to use, if you can see that. See the opening? It's lapped over, so it's quite large. You can get your finger in there. That's how big it is by comparison to this one here. It's a lot smaller. So it's not as fine as your typical insect netting, which will do the job as well, because obviously the codling moth is an insect, so you can drape it over with insect netting if you can't get any wildlife friendly stuff. A lot better than the traditional bird netting that we have over there. So now, anyway, let's just coil this up and tuck it underneath. I've just tucked it in, all the excess netting that I have. It's a shame to cut it off, folks. If you cannot, well, if you can avoid cutting it off, all the better. So you can use it for the next time. It may grow bigger. Now, I've got the galvanised U-pegs. That's what we're using. As far as those plastic ones that we showed you a while ago, a few weeks ago, well, guess what? We've sold out of them. The next batch isn't coming until next year. So until then, we're using these, and well, these are strong as buggery. They'll never rot. They're galvanised. What we need to do is peg it down. I've just fed it through the netting carefully like this. The openings are big enough or large enough for the peg to fit through, and then I'm just going to push it into the ground if I can get past the mulch. And you can just use your hand or your foot. Now I'm going to go on the opposite end and pull it tight, because you can't have it loose like this. Even though this is a wildlife friendly netting, again, when it's loose like this, it's still not safe. So you need to pull it tight on both ends and make it nice and taut. And this is the last corner. I've done the opposite end. See how nice and tight it is on top there? That's what you want overall. And then we're going to do the parts in between so we can make it all the same. Tensioned like that, so if a bird or animal falls on there, it's not going to get tangled up in it. What's the point in putting netting up to protect your fruit and not doing it properly and harming the wildlife? It defeats the purpose of everything. There we are. Now I'm putting one in the middle here, and then I'm going to pull the sides at opposite ends. Most of the looseness is what you're seeing draped in is on the inside, it's not on the outside. And any bird that tries to sneak in underneath is really looking for trouble, basically. And also the ones with the larger opening, the old bird netting, the one that's got the 14, 15 mil opening aperture, that also, it's not only the birds that get caught up in it, or even possums. Snakes, if you're out in the region, snakes can actually get caught up in the holes themselves and strangle them. Now, here, I know a lot of you probably saying good on them, but the reality is you don't want to be doing that, because what do you want to do? Walk out into your fruit garden or your fruit tree to have a look at it and there's a snake hanging out there half dead? No, and especially birds. So do it nice and neat, and it's a work of art at the end of the day. It really does look nice. I love it. You can go to all extremes. You can end up putting 8, there's 2 crossovers, but having 8 of them, or 4 crossovers, so another one here. So we create a full-on dome, and there's none of this leaning in here. Look at that, it's already leaning on the tree. I've got to avoid that. So you may want to put another one that way if you can get enough material together. So when it comes to bird netting your trees, whether you're using insect netting or the wildlife, or even the old traditional one in other parts of Australia, make sure you tighten it, keep it nice and tight, no loose ends, and peg it down properly, and make sure the tree doesn't grow through it. And you're lucky about this one, because the smaller the hole, the harder the branch is to be able to push through. So that's another benefit of it, by having the smaller aperture on it. It's available on our website, vasili'sgarden.com. Not many pieces left, or packs left of this stuff here, so check it out before we sell out. Otherwise, have a lovely day, and I'll see you tomorrow. From me, Vasili, Maresi.